Today in Markelitics we have Nick Baumer, the CMO of Tickmill. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. I think Tickmill is the perfect fit for this interview and is one of the leading brokers, at least from my perspective. It's a pleasure again to have you, and let's have a nice talk. Welcome, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
I will start with my first question. How did everything start for Tickmill, and to give me a bit of details about it?
Sure.
So Tickmill started around 2014. So it was founded by two brothers, Ingmar and Ilmar Matus. So these were guys that actually had experience from the hedge fund space, other brokers, etc. And so, that they were investors themselves, which I thought was always a very interesting thing. And I'm sure we'll talk about it a bit later. And they just had this idea, okay, let's start our own broker and focus on really what traders want and understanding really that mentality and just offering great trading conditions, great service. And I think that's also carried through a lot of the reputation that we've had over the years is largely due to these two guys and how they started it. And then, we've been growing ever since. We started in Europe, and then from there we've been expanding across the world.
Tickmill is operating worldwide, correct?
Correct, yeah.
What are the key points for Tickmill? Key selling points, let's say like that?
Sure.
Well, look, the way we position ourselves, obviously, we offer the same trading platforms, MT4, MT5, that whole thing. But I think really where we try to differentiate ourselves more than the others is really the trading conditions, right? So we spend a lot of time trying to get our spreads as low as possible. So it's easy for me to say that, but we also, look at these, if you look at my FX book and these different tools, we really try to spend as much time as we can to get those spreads, especially on the euro dollar, like we try to get that as low as we can consistently. And I think that's one of our main differentiators. We try to then combine that also with just really good customer service. So, we try to give the clients what they need. If they have any issues, we try to resolve it straight away. There's always someone you can call at Tickmill. And I think the last thing, and that's kind of especially relevant nowadays because, industry kind of goes through turmoil, ups and downs, a lot of phases, exactly. And I think that one thing that I know that Ilmar and Ingmar like to emphasize a lot is that, we're a very well capitalized company. So there's a lot of money in the bank, so to say. So, traders can really rely and count on the fact that Tickmill is really going to be here for the long run. And I think that's important because there's a lot of interesting companies out there, and we've seen it now with Silicon Valley Bank, when a bank run starts, anything like that. So at Tickmill we don't have that problem. So there's a lot of money safely parked away, and we're quite proud of the fact that we're one of the best capitalized companies in the market.
That provides the safety actually for the clients and for the partners who are working with Tickmill. When we touch base about the long-term plans, what do you see the next steps for Tickmill are in the next 1 year, and then the plan for the next 5 years?
So the way we're going is, we call ourselves, obviously we operate globally, but we also multi-asset. So when you use the term multi-asset, what does that mean? So obviously we've done very well on the CFD, the Forex space. We've also, 2 years ago, we introduced futures and options, real futures and options. So what we call exchange traded derivatives. So the difference obviously between OTC derivatives, which is CFDs, versus going through an exchange like the CME. So if you ever remember those images of people shouting, in the color jackets and shouting at each other. So that's obviously now gone digital. So we work with the CME, for example, and a variety of other exchanges. So to offer futures and option contracts to our clients. So obviously over the next 5 years, we'll be adding more of those different types of assets and try to be a one-stop shop for everything that a trader could want.
Interesting. Not a lot of brokers can say that they offer this kind of stuff, and I think this will differentiate Tickmill from the others, and I think that's a great start for the future. When it comes to offices, you operate here in Cyprus, correctly? Where else globally do you have the offices? I think it's important for people to know.
Yeah, so we have a global footprint. When we say global, we truly mean it. So the headquarters is here in Cyprus, so we have over 100 people. Then we also have a big operation in London because we're also an FCA regulated entity. So we have a nice operation in the city of London, so right in the financial heart of Europe, pretty much you could say even the world maybe. So we've been FCA licensed for some years now as well, so we take great pride in that. In addition to that, we have an office in Estonia, in Tallinn. And then we also have local regional offices in a variety of countries. So we have an office in Vietnam, we just opened one in Colombia. We have an office, 2 offices actually in South Africa, Vietnam, as I mentioned before, probably as well. So truly a global footprint to try to really cater to, when I talked about client service, we take that serious. So that means being able to answer people in their local language, be in the same time zone, really understand, the local challenges that people have.
So globalization actually for Tickmill is the next steps. Amazing. What are the markets that Tickmill focus on now? Is there any burning hot markets that you're focusing on now, or you literally spreading all around?
Well, I think the industry is kind of going into a few different places. So Latin America has definitely been on everyone's radar now, I think, for about a good 2 years. All right. So South Africa is another one. So we also have a license in South Africa now, which I think that's also a big win. The Middle East is obviously also very hot. Sound like Zoolander in that one. But for example, the reason, and I think also if you think about, so that's also where Tickmill is focusing a lot. So the South African license, now we got a Dubai license as well. So we're going to be opening an office there very, very soon, in the next, I think, month or two. So again, testament, yeah, thanks a lot. So again, testament also, I think, to our reputation and just the seriousness of our focus, really, I think, about just having that local presence for people and understanding the local culture, which is super different. And so the Middle East has been very, very, active for us. And then Asia is always, is interesting markets. Obviously, I think, the
it's not easy to tap it.
It's not always easy, but it's a huge opportunity.
It's a huge.
And then, of course, we have our core base in Europe as well as the UK.
Amazing, perfect. The next question that I wanted to ask, is the current economy situation in the world affecting the business that is Tickmill doing, or no?
Yes, absolutely. I think when you look at data, so I'm a very data-driven guy, and so it's interesting to see. So more than any other factor that influences trading behavior, we always worry sometimes in marketing about how do we get more people to trade, and like are we getting how to increase engagement, things like that. But ultimately, what drives everything more than anything are just market events. So whether it's, unfortunately, sad to say, a war, whether it's a pandemic, the crypto hype from 2 years ago when things were hitting $60,000, everything was just absolutely crazy. So I think that those kind of large, and of course now with the bank collapse, or now all this business in Switzerland as well,
it's ups and downs.
Ups and downs. But we can see when events like that happen, the market kind of goes from a sideways kind of a movement into more volatility. And obviously more volatility means more opportunity, so we can see things come in. So yeah, obviously it does have an effect, and then as you know, with derivatives, whether the price goes up or down, you can always find a way forward.
Interesting question that my visitors 100% want to know is how hard is to set up a local office and find good people to actually work and have a good business there, let's say in Asia or Africa or wherever you want to localize? I
think, well, it can be challenging. I think it's all about people. So, being a manager,
people, yeah.
Always, right? So, like, if you're a manager, I think it's a lot of my time goes into just making sure that the team is fine. It's not actually about writing copy or trying to do Photoshop stuff. It's just about finding the right people. If you find the good people, then kind of things take care of themselves. So, obviously, you try to give the right kind of guidance. You try to give them a direction that they need to operate. But ultimately, you try to find the best people. Now, I know, for example, that the way we used to do it, because again, one of the things when you mentioned earlier or asked about, what's different about us, so I mentioned Ilmar Ingmar. So we like to say that, our board and the guys running the company, these are all former traders. So they all have very active investing advice. So we could go toe to toe with some of our best traders and really speak their language. And that's not just some kind of a sales line, it's genuinely true. Like our CEO of our Tickmill UK entity, he used to be in Chicago trading the pits. So that's kind of amazing, right? So we really understand, I think, the business. So we built up a community and you build up a network over the years. So for example, one of the guys, there could be someone that was active on Forex Factory, for example, on the forums, very active. We just start talking, exchanging ideas, and then before you know, hey, let's work together, let's do something. So ultimately, while culturally people could be very different, ultimately the language of trading and numbers and making money is kind of very similar. So you can find, as long as you have that shared interest, it's kind of possible. So if you find the right guy, or right woman obviously, but the right person, then of course you start putting some money into it. So Tickmill's been doing, luckily, very, very well. And you just start slowly building up and footprints in the snow and just start to build up a business.
I think the core team in Tickmill, there is a lot of experience in it on all main roles, and this is what differentiates Tickmill from the other brands. The knowledge that they have, they can put a strong groundhold and build on top of it. The next question that I have is, what is the marketing strategy for Tickmill and how does it stand out from the crowd?
Yeah, so there's a lot of emphasis on awareness, so just being visible within the trading community and investing community at large. So we want our partners to know that we exist, and we want more partners to know about that, obviously, and are the main traders. So that kind of involves the usual channels. So obviously Google, Meta, those kind of channels you need to be present on. We also advertise on places like Bloomberg, for example, to really reach out to that more sophisticated type of an audience. But I'd say that, I'd say the usual suspects. But I think maybe perhaps what is an interesting project for me this year is that we really try to decentralize the marketing efforts a bit more. So as I mentioned earlier, we have these local offices in different places. It's also not just having, let's say, customer support or let's say a partnership manager or something like that, but it's also about having marketing expertise. So having someone that can tell me, okay, look, in Vietnam or in South Africa or in the UK, this is how you should advertise. And these are the peculiarities of that market to really understand what drives people. And once you can tap into that narrative, into that local, let's say, culture and mindset, then your marketing will also become more effective. So I think that's an interesting evolution that we're going through at the moment.
Because I think branding and exposure are super important points in each marketing strategy. I think Tickmill is focusing on this a lot, and I give credit to that really because I think it's important. And not a lot of brands recognize this, and they need to focus on this in order to give to the people the example how one good broker needs to look like. When it comes to products, how does Tickmill stands? Do you see that new products are coming in the future?
Yeah, so well, what do you mean by products? You mean like trading products?
Trading products.
Any additional? Trading. So for sure, we're going to have I think the next 5 years at Tickmill is going to be very exciting. I can't say too much yet about that, but it's been a very busy time and we're going to go, the next 5 years of Tickmill are going to be incredibly bright. I would say for sure, I think that we're currently, we've always tried to focus on, okay, when we offer something, we try to do the best job possible. So one of the things you could say is if you look at other brokers, they might offer more assets to trade. So we are currently working on that. We'll be adding more stock CFDs, for example. We have a pretty good offering, I think, in terms of our currencies. But we always try to do it with the best conditions possible. If you look at how we did crypto, so even though we were a little bit late to the whole crypto game, I can honestly say, like outside of Europe, for example, our crypto leverage for Bitcoin, for example, was 1 to 200. Now those are some pretty amazing numbers. On top of that, no swaps and the spreads were very, very tight. So I think we had probably we have one of the best crypto CFD offerings on the market today outside of Europe. So in Europe, obviously leverage is a little bit different. We have to be very mindful of that. But I think that, so when we go into new assets, we try to do the very best that we can. So it's kind of like that Tickmill vibe to it, if you will, which is really about good risk management, trying to give the best possible conditions to our traders, and then work from there. We don't just want to flood the entire market and then have these very unappealing trading conditions, because ultimately you're going to disappoint the client. So slow but steady, and we try to introduce more and more products all the time, but always with that kind of Tickmill approach of good service, make sure that liquidity is really deep. Make sure execution times are solid, make sure that, simple things like make sure your MT4, MT5 servers are all over the world, make sure that you can really work on a global scale. We're constantly adding it. And then as I mentioned as well, the futures and options product is very interesting. So again, that's really a new type of audience that we're tapping into. So we're actively working on developing that market further. And then, the future, we have some interesting announcements coming up very soon. I can't say too much just yet, but definitely we're going to be diversifying even.
100%, then we will have a discussion about them. I hope so. I wanted to ask you about the human touch and the employing process in Tickmill. How much do you really point attention to it, and how deeply do Tickmill goes into it?
It's incredibly important, right? So you're only as good as your team. So it's sometimes I say it's easy for me to my job. I'm only as good as the amazing marketing team that we have, and so they do all the hard work, so to say. I'd say that we tried, and again, credit to the board and the ownership, so Ilmar, Ingmar, and our other board members. We really try to create a family. So one of the things that we do employee satisfaction surveys, for example, we see people really enjoy working here. So it's not a joke. I regularly catch myself congratulating people who have been here 5-6 years. So that's, usually in the Forex business, there's a lot of jumping around going on. It's not common. So we have people here that have been here multiple years. So I think that's a testament to the fact that people feel good here. We really try to respect work-life balance. Compensation packages obviously have to be competitive, benefits and things like that. So, once we find the right people, so we go through quite a strict interview process. And once you're in, we really try to make sure that you're comfortable, you have all the training that you need, that you feel that you're working on interesting projects. And then really we try to plan and work, 2 to 5 to hopefully forever to work us together as long as possible.
So you're creating the perfect environment for people and persons to grow, do their job properly, and be awarded for that. I think these brokers don't recognize, and this is the main selling points. If people are searching for jobs, this is the unique selling point: feeling at home and delivering the job needed. One of my last question is, where does Tickmill attend on expos this year? Is there already a scheduled plan? Or?
Yeah, I don't know about it. There's actually a lot of them. So we're going to, as I mentioned, because we have we have a license in South Africa. We have offices there. So now Finance Magnus, I think.
The biggest one is there. Yeah.
They're going there, so we'll be there as well. We're having various events. So we were in Germany actually last week at an investor expo. Then Europe, there's a bunch of them we're going to. We're also organizing our own events in London, for example, for trying to create these trading days for our top clients and whatnot. So I'd say pretty much in Latin America, I know Rankia is doing some events. We'll be attending there as well. So yeah, pretty much anywhere where there is an event, there is a chance we'll be attending at least one per market per year.
You mentioned the local events that the Tickmill is creating. Can you tell me a bit about more about that?
So, for example, one of the approaches to futures, for example, right? So it's kind of a complex product. Mm-hmm. So it takes a little bit of getting used to the trading platform. So it's not just you have things like CQG and Volumetrica. There's so many different platforms out there. Anyway, so it's a little bit complex to get into. Once you get into hang of it, it's actually people really enjoy it. So what we did, for example, back in November, and now I think end of March we're going again. So, well, as I mentioned, we have an operation in London. So we, for example, we created an event in the Shard, which is this really big tower that they have in London. So we invited, let's say, 2 speakers, 2 educators from the CME. So that's the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, that's the largest futures and options exchange in the world. So we partner up with them. And so they'll be sending some of their people, some of their educators to our event. And then we combine it with our own educators as well. And we try to give insights into the markets, try to reply to questions. People probably be asking a lot of questions now about, where are things going to go now with banks in Europe? Exactly. What's going to be the fallout from all of this? So we really try to just provide a variety, a diversity of opinion. So imagine you having, these are people like one guy, I think his name is Eric Norland from the CME. I mean, this guy has like a CV like you wouldn't believe. So we're just offering this to our clients and just say, look, when you're part of Tickmill, you're part of something. I think we try to add value to every step of the way. So just different opinions, high quality opinions, and those are just some examples of events.
It's only for people who already are clients of Tickmill, or for new
potential. If we see potential as well, and we feel that we want to build a relationship with you, then we'll also.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. It was a pleasure to speak with you. I think we need to wrap it up. I hope Tickmill has a successful year. And you achieve all the goals personally and as a company as well in Tickmill, and grow further and further and keep the trust that you have with the traders on the next level. Thank you once again having me in your office. We stay in touch, and once new products and new features come from Tickmill, I hope we'll discuss it.
Thanks a lot.